Hello, and welcome to the final part of our three-part series, Demystifying the Cloud, where we've been sharing our thoughts and our expertise to hopefully help you make a success of your cloud adoption journey at every stage, to help you find your path to success on the cloud. I'm Matt, I'm a principal software craftsman from Codurance. I'm also joined once again by my colleague Rodrigo.
Hello.
And we're going to dig into how you can maximize the benefits of the cloud once you've got there. So let's get started then. So Rodrigo, what are some of the factors do you think organizations should consider to be successful once they're in the cloud, and how might they make the most of the cloud platform?
Well, I think the first step is to run an assessment of your current state, right? Check your how your cloud platform. So if you just moved to the cloud, or if you're still using, or if you've been using the cloud for some time, you probably ask yourself, it is still aligned with your business needs, right? So you need to come up with our point of business alignment and see if it still makes sense, or if you need to do some adjustments. Of course, then from the implementation perspective, it's also good to probably implement some governance process where you can check if you don't have any drifts on your solution strategy, and then probably use some frameworks and best practices to guide you through this process as well. And also have a visibility of where you want to be from now, right? So maybe having a look at your technical vision and see where your company wants to be and how that aligns with the business.
Yeah, great. I guess there's quite a few points there, I think, to pick through. So let's perhaps sort of go through one at a time in a little bit more detail, perhaps.
Okay.
So let's perhaps start with, I guess you said, sort of where you are currently with your platform and trying to assess that. So how and why do you think organizations should assess their platform, and how they might go about doing that?
Well, if we consider the first point, which is kind of a business alignment, it would be good to revisit, first why you moved to the cloud, or why you're using the cloud in the first place. The first step is probably having a look at your main business drivers. So understand again, consider why you moved to the cloud, or why you use the cloud in the first place, and then look at those business objectives and see if they still make sense. I think that's probably the first thing for you to understand. And then, if you just implemented something, it's good to understand if all the promised benefits were realized. So that's where I think you need to revisit the data that you collected during this time, look at the KPIs, and see how you can present an evidence that those benefits were realized. And could be sometimes a bit more quantitative, sometimes more qualitative, but the main point here is that you have a way to show an evidence to your stakeholders that you're delivering what you promised.
Yeah, I guess it's kind of making sure, as you said, it's still sort of, having got to the cloud, it's still sort of meeting the underlying business drivers that hopefully were in place from the very beginning, and you've not sort of drifted off since then.
Definitely.
Great. I think the second point you mentioned was about governance, I think, right? So I guess let's have a chat about what that might mean in practice. I guess so, having gone to the cloud and you're now in the cloud, what might organizations want to think about in terms of cloud platform governance, do you think?
Yeah, there are different aspects that are usually used to govern, right? So, of course, that we already spoke about business alignment. I think this probably would be the first place, but also from your implementation perspective, you need to understand, usually if it was implemented following some good or best practices. Usually they come from different perspectives, like it could be from the security perspective, from performance perspective, from also control perspective, from optimization. So it's good to set some standards where you can measure any deviation that we would have and how we could adjust that.
Yeah, do you think there's almost sort of two lenses to look at the governance piece through? There's like the angle of being from a purely technical perspective. Are we building the right things? Are we following best practices? All those sorts of things. But then perhaps the second lens is more kind of business focused. So as you were saying before about business alignment, I guess that sort of like governance comes in there too, making sure that the technical vision and the things that we're building in this platform are still aligned from a business perspective.
Yes, definitely.
I guess that also sort of leads on nicely to, I guess, sort of technical vision you mentioned earlier on as well. So I think having got to the cloud, it now might be a good sort of time to think about what your tech vision might be, perhaps, sort of for longer term cloud adoption. So for sort of Tim's thinking about that, what are some of the things that you think is kind of worth considering, sort of thinking about building a longer term tech vision on the cloud?
Yeah. So of course, is useful to understand the context, right? So if you just migrate to the cloud, or if you're starting with the cloud, so I will try to come up with our cloud migration perspective and see when we are trying to understand the benefits of migrating to the cloud and etc. And then the strategies that you've been talking about, in terms of rehost, replatform, or re-architecture. I think that for example, if you start with just a rehost, so maybe you need to revisit your technical vision and see, okay, the objective here, the end state for us would be to actually modernize the whole platform and to better support the business and to be a bit more agile with change and etc. Be a bit more responsive to market change and etc. So I think it's probably the first point that you need to check. So where you are on your previous definition of the technical vision, if it still makes sense, if it's still where you want to be, and how your next steps to get there. So then considering some, for example, replatform, if you just don't rehost, and the next step would be to replatform, maybe choose a bit more cloud native services or managed services would be probably the next step for you to take. Of course, that it would be good to avoid some traps. For example, I'm not sure in terms of long-term strategy for your technical vision, it would be aligned with the specific cloud provider. So if it's not, then you need to make sure that you're not getting services that you'll be locked into a specific cloud provider. Sometimes it is, sometimes that's the choice, and it's easier, then it makes sense. Then, of course, the development of your technical vision involves some other different aspects. So innovation, I think, is probably the one of the key words there, where you're going to see if there are any more creative way to deal with business problems, and then it comes back to all the potential that the cloud providers usually gives to you in terms of using new services and trying new services for a lower cost. So trying things like machine learning, or even changing completely your strategy of being only in the cloud. So maybe thinking about, okay, so if the cloud itself doesn't solve all my problems, so I need, for example, a bit more of computing power on premises. For example, if you have an IoT solution in a factory, you may want to have some edge computing there to reduce the latency of the response from services, and maybe try to optimize the communication between these IoT devices and your cloud, and an application that's in the cloud and things like that. So these kind of things are usually the main challenge when you think about the next step, and that's where you think about re-architecture and modernizing and things like that.
Yeah, great point. So I think the point about innovation is also very interesting. I think moving to the cloud, I think often sort of lowers the bar of entry to innovation. I think you mentioned a few things like machine learning, for example. I think on premise that would have been a much higher bar to entry, both in terms of cost and sort of procuring the hardware, but also there's often quite niche and specialist skills involved in that. So the cost to enter these new markets would have been much harder. I think a lot of cloud providers these days are providing managed services to give you easier access to some of these things. I think innovation perhaps is more at the fingertips than it would have been before.
True.
Yeah, I think there's also something I think to think about in terms of technical vision and trying to evolve that. I think in terms of making sure that you keep pace with technology. I think, as we all know, technology moves at a very fast rate. So I think kind of keeping an eye on technology trends is important, making sure that the frameworks and the tools that you're using are up to date and as much as they can be sort of best in class. And obviously that the cloud providers help a bit with that too, with managed services. But I think as an organization, it's also down to you to have a look at your system landscape and kind of cast that analysis over your systems too.
Yeah, I think the most important thing here is to constantly reevaluate your position, right? So because things change so fast, in terms of technology or even within your business environment now, so it's good to have at least a frequent reevaluation of your strategy and test it to see if it still makes sense and do the required adjustments that you need to do.
Yeah, definitely. I think the key thing is you want your cloud platform and your technology to be an enabler for your business, right? You want to be able to, as an organization, pivot quickly and move into new markets or new service lines quickly. And so you want to be in a position where your tech platform enables you to do that. If you're always held back and hindered by technology, you're going to find it difficult then to keep pace with the market.
True.
So I think, as you were saying, I think kind of that reevaluation process is really key, enabling you to make sort of small course corrections now and again, as opposed to getting further on down the line and realizing that you have to kind of make large scale refactorings or large scale changes to your systems to then kind of meet a business need.
Yeah, and that's probably where I think most of the technical debts are usually paid off, right? So when you start to do this kind of evaluation and constantly looking at things that you left behind, maybe on purpose because you're doing things quite quickly, or sometimes because you were not aware of that, I think that's a good opportunity for you to correct those actions.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, thanks for watching our 3-part series. We hope you found this useful. If you'd like to learn more, please visit our website where you can find other useful resources. Or if you'd like help with your own cloud adoption journey, please do get in touch. Bye for now.
Bye.